good afternoon, and welcome to Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio with your host, Pamela Capallet, a certified financial planner here to help take the bite out of your budget, brunchandbudget.com. I'm your sound provider, Dialect, and here's your host, Pamela Capallet.
Thank you, Dialect, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. We have an awesome show for you. We have Prosperity Now back on the show. They put out an annual scorecard every year to get an idea.
Do they put an annual scorecard out every year?
They do. I think that's what annual means. So they put out a scorecard every year, and basically the scorecard looks at a slew of measures in each state about how the households are doing financially. So they basically rank how each state is doing financially in 5 different areas: financial assets and income, business and jobs, homeownership and housing, healthcare and education. I'm a little nervous to see this scorecard, y'all. So we actually have LeBaron Sims Jr., the Senior Research Manager at Prosperity Now, and he is in Atlanta right now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we are so. I don't know if excited is the word. I think we're looking forward to hearing more about how well we're all doing in these 5 areas. Right?
You just described excitement. You're doing really weird with words today.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble with words today.
Well, we don't know if we're excited, but we're looking forward.
I don't know.
That's all right. It's been a pretty long week for, I feel like, America. So I think a little redundancy is forgiven.
Thank you. So, thank you again so much for joining us. I would love to hear more about what you do at Prosperity Now, and then what your work has been on the scorecard.
Sure. So I am, again, a senior research manager at Prosperity Now. I've been with the organization for 5 years, and
nice.
My principal role is doing, this is going to sound super exciting, quantitative data analysis for policy and programs teams around the organization. So I just provide support around numbers, figures, calculations, all that stuff that's super sexy and everybody loves.
Yeah, totally.
Well, yeah, I saw, because when I was driving up, I saw the new whiskey ad, and I saw they had your picture and all the other quantitative data analysis. Because if you want to get those liquor sponsorships, you need to be in quantitative data analysis.
That's what I heard. Although you are the reason why we know these stats we can trust.
I do appreciate that.
Yes, totally.
Well, I mean, because stats are very scary right now. A lot of people just willy-nilly are like, I don't believe in stats because stats can come from anywhere. And that's not exactly the point of stats.
That's not true either.
That's not the thing about stats.
Yeah.
I will say it is a very scary time right now to be a statistician, given some of the machinations at the federal level around data collection.
Whoa, tell us more about that.
And dissemination of data. A lot of the data that we rely on for our Prosperity Now scorecard comes directly from the Census Bureau, the American Community Survey, which is collected and released every year, the Survey of Income and Program Participation, which is what we use to calculate or derive our estimates of household wealth. And a lot of those, especially the Survey of Income and Program Participation, are annually on the chopping block because of budget shortfalls at the Census Bureau, because of lack of support or will from certain members of Congress. So, every year, it's really a battle to, especially in the data advocacy community, to rally support behind these large data sets that everybody uses to really determine and identify the challenges that everyday Americans face, and use that data, that knowledge base, to help to bolster support for programs that help people on the ground, people like day to day in their everyday lives.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that this was up for debate every year, whether or not that they were going to keep collecting this data, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, and this is the tricky part, is the only data that's mandated to specific, that the U.S. government is specifically mandated to collect, is the decennial census, which is the one that we do every 10 years. Right. That's really just a head count of how many people live in the United States. And at its core level, it's really just that head count.
Dang.
So,
it tells us nothing.
all the other, Yeah, exactly. All the other data that we collect, even especially around race, ethnicity, gender, none of that is required to be collected. All of that is collected really at the behest of the United States Census Bureau and the annual appropriations that Congress, disseminates to census.
Oh my gosh.
So there has been talk recently of getting rid of the American Community Survey, which is again one of the core surveys that we get to around energy use, around race and ethnicity, around income. And again, the survey of income and program participation has been reconfigured so many times over the last 10 years because every time there's a budget shortfall, that's one of the first ones that's on the chopping block. And that's where we get some of the most robust data around household wealth and race, and data that we can actually analyze at the state level, which is why we use it in the scorecard. So we can look at some of the differences regionally. What do white households in Mississippi look like versus white households in Massachusetts versus Black households in California versus Native American households in Oklahoma? Most survey sets aren't going to tell us this, and just based on sample size, but the survey of income and program participation will. So it's why it's so important for us to have these broad-based national data sets, is so that we're able to tell stories about America.
Yeah, I know that's a little bit of a digression from what we were planning to talk about, but thank you for highlighting what's really important, because as, this is the thing that we know, as government groups and policymakers are trying to shut down or limit access to data, private companies completely and totally understand the value of all of these data points.
Right.
So,
and
that's
the actual monetary value of
that's
them.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The monetary value, we understand the social value and all of those things. So, that just gives a little bit deeper an understanding of that.
Right. And I feel like it's really important what you said about actually being able to tell the story of America and Americans with this data, because not having this data means that people can stay hidden behind what they think America is like without actually seeing the real numbers. So the fact that you're fighting for this and that you're analyzing it in this way, thank you for doing that, so we don't have to.
Thank you for keeping us not guessing.
Yes.
I'm no hero. The true heroes are those at the Census Bureau who are collecting and cleaning all of that data, because Lord knows cleaning data is the least fun of any researcher's job.
Oh my God.
I feel like that could be we should have you back and talk about that, because that's an entirely different can of worms. I'm not ready to open up.
I know, right? So can you tell us?
I will say we'll need whiskey for that conversation.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Most definitely.
I love it. Can you give us some background on the Prosperity Now scorecard in general? How long have you been doing it? And then how did you determine what you wanted to measure?
Sure. So the Prosperity Now scorecard has been has been in production since 2002.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
It's been produced annually since 2012. So this is, the 15th year of us releasing the scorecard, and really the 6th year of us releasing it annually. Again, I've been in the organization for 5 years, so I came in as we were starting to release it annually. And my primary responsibility at Prosperity Now has been shepherding the scorecard each year, helping to manage its outcome data, working with our state and local policy team to make sure that our state level policy data is up to date, and then doing annual analysis, dissemination of the report, writing the report, and making sure that we can translate the findings of the report to audiences all across the country, disseminate the findings of the report to practitioners in the asset building and financial capability spaces.
Yes.
Making sure that clients, people on the ground, researchers, academics, policymakers have this data in their hands so that they can make educated decisions, educated reports around, again, the day-to-day lives of Americans and the ways that policies actually have a direct effect on the pocketbooks of American citizens.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that is something where again, like this data, that's why this data is so important, and to make it digestible. Like you say that like you're not a hero for not being the one who's cleaning it up, but I also feel like I'm not going to interpret this, and I'm not even going to know where to start. So the fact that you've been able to break down like 113 different like measures and different data points into these 5 main areas and make it digestible for people is so important. And can you tell us a little bit about how you came to these 5 main areas? And I'm going to repeat them again for everybody: financial assets and income, business and jobs, homeownership and housing, and healthcare and education.
Absolutely. So the our 5 issue areas, as we like to call them, really come from Prosperity Now's mission and the way that we view asset building and financial well-being. So we really do take a comprehensive and holistic view of what affects a household's balance sheet, right? The day-to-day expenses, the challenges that households may face. And we're not just necessarily looking at earnings and income or savings. We're also looking at some of these big ticket items that people may not necessarily associate with household wealth, like healthcare, right?
Yeah.
Healthcare is something that's valuable. It's incredibly important, and it is one of the, if not the leading cause of household bankruptcy. Certainly was before the implementation of the
Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care Act. Yeah. So I had the American Community Survey on my mind. The Affordable Care Act, and the reduction in household liability and costs that came as a direct result of the implementation of the Affordable Care Act had a demonstrable effect on the pocketbooks of your average American household.
Yeah, that's
we
huge.
take into account education, because education is not only a huge cost these days. I'm someone who has a graduate degree, so I have graduate degree debt, which has implications on my ability to purchase a home in the future, my ability to save for kids, spend on kids, to even save to take a trip.
Yeah, save for retirement, like all of that stuff.
But also the fact that I was able to get a graduate degree means I earn more in my lifetime, right? All of which affects businesses and jobs. Businesses and jobs, direct earnings, unemployment, all of these things kind of come together to give a full and robust picture of, again, the balance sheet of American households. So we don't want to give short shrift to all of the ways that the American household is affected by all these different components of the American economy.
Yeah.
And obviously, we definitely look at homeownership and affordable homeownership at that, and housing, because again, the largest store of wealth for the average American household is the home.
Yep.
And that's the biggest purchase that most households will ever make. And given the outsized nature or outsized effect that the homeownership or housing market had on the collapse of nearly a decade ago, it would be irresponsible of us not to look at housing in the context of the financial health of American citizens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some of the key findings of the report that you found?
So the key findings of the scorecard are, it's always illuminative of the ways, especially over the past 5 years, as we've really seen the national economy really take root and the recovery grow. It's continued upward trajectory really over the last 5 years.
I feel like people are bragging about the unemployment rate and how it's the lowest it's been in a long time.
5 years. Absolutely. Yeah. But again, the more that we look at the data at state level, and now for the first time in Scorecard, we're looking at community level data, we realize just which households have been benefiting from the recovery, right? So there was a new household net worth data released in March, actually, from the Survey of Income and Program Participation. And we're seeing higher levels of net worth among white households. Median household net worth for a white household is $127,000.
So that's like including your house, your retirement accounts.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So 120. That's not bad.
Yeah, it also includes your car.
Oh, okay.
Which is something that not a lot of people really take into account. And there's
well, that makes more sense now.
among researchers. Exactly.
Right.
About whether or not the car should be determined. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
All that to say, while white households are at $127,000, households of color, in a general sense, are at $17,000.
17, like 17.
Like 17, comma 000.
Oh my God! Wait, so 127 versus 17,000.
Exactly.
Which
gets a much bleaker as we pare that down to Latino households, to African American households who are under $10,000. Or average median household net worth for a Black family is $9,250, which is
including the car.
I wanted to break a couple of things down with that one in particular because I was peeping the video that was going around and the people's reactions to it because I'm always interested in seeing what are folks thinking about these clinical terms since we have such a conflation of meanings of some of these things. So
Absolutely.
First, one of the things was a lot of confusion over what it means to be the median wealth. People are confusing median and mean, and also speculating wildly about speculating wildly about how much the median is influenced by the top brackets. In other words, a lot of people were saying why you would see white households in six figures is because all it takes is those few billionaires, and it throws
but
it all.
That's not what median means.
I'm just saying. What's been? I would love for the statistician to disabuse us of a lot of stuff. I just wanted to relay real quick. So that seems to be the confusion about they're thinking that either they don't know what a median is, or B, they think that the higher earners are skewing things. And then the second part of it about people's understanding and what they're failing to get is they seem to think that these numbers they're not sure where what is all included. So I appreciate the part of including the car in terms of what counts as wealth. So if we could clear up a little bit, what are the edges of those?
Yeah,
absolutely. So the first point as to the ways that the median household net worth is calculated, it really is the center point of the net worth or the wealth distribution. So a median means that there's 50% of the population on one side and 50% on the other. So outliers like Oprah, for example,
right.
And her billions of dollars aren't going to skew the results of the median calculation because, again, she's just one of millions.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it's based on the median calculation is based on values, but it's also based on population specifically.
Well, and isn't that
50-50.
Yeah, and isn't that why you use median in this instance because of how well it excludes the outliers?
Absolutely. And so mean, which most people take as the average, which is sum total divided by
Number
X
of
or
people,
N,
yeah.
sorry, N, number of people in the population, is skewed by outliers because it is dependent on the highest values, the lowest values, every single value added into that sum. So as we kind of think through the ways that we use net worth and we look at net worth and we analyze net worth, it's absolutely important to see what the components of household net worth are, right? So when we talk about household net worth or household wealth, again, for the most part, we are talking about store of value in a person's home. So right off the bat, we're going to see home ownership rates directly influence household net worth. So where we saw household net worth drop precipitously, especially among households of color, following the Great Recession, the key driver of that was the housing prices.
Right.
Housing prices hit communities of color harder, in part because they were targeted
with those subprime mortgages,
unscrupulously, and directly with subprime mortgages, with usurious rates, and also hit African American households in particular, but Latino households as well, and Native American households have historically had lower home ownership rates than white households for a myriad of reasons, including redlining, including restrictive covenants. Especially in the in the example of Native Americans, just direct land theft.
Right. They just
Right.
took that shit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and don't forget, African Americans too, the Gullah Geechees down in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I
Harlem
imagine
recently.
like for the families who do own, I feel like home value in neighborhoods of color are lower in general.
And absolutely. And again, there's a number of reasons why that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Home values, again, and as we kind of think through that legacy of redlining, where homes that had even one Black person on the block were
Mm-hmm.
X'd out,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And kind of identified as not necessarily credit worthy, as not holding value because, for whatever reason, white households, white families historically don't really want to live around Black people.
Yeah, whatever reason. I feel like we
yeah.
got to go to a song on that note.
For whatever reason.
For whatever
We need to
reason.
go to a song. And we're gonna do a little bit of white flight of our own. We're heading out to Edmond, Oklahoma. Actually don't know the background of the artists that are here, but we're heading out to Edmond, Oklahoma, where I assume there are a lot of white folks. Statisticians can tell me if that's correct or not. For a group called Frontier Species with their song Scoreboard, and we'll check you in a minute. Bunch of Budget, Bonfire Radio.
Turn up, or don't, cause it's all your choice. Feel ashamed to be weird, I'll be your voice. Always telling you to stick to you. If you wanna be wild, fuck it, just be a zoo. It's all independent, living for the game, body rocket rap tenant. Stay decorated, looking like a little pendant. The species is independent. I'm underrated for the most part. Why they sound so different, it's all in the heart. No tiger for the confirmation. Been great, don't need to hear the conversation. Wow. Rockin' so donkey, rather be an ass than to ever be phony. Skill is skill, that's why labels will phone me. But if it don't sound right, we'll do it on our own beat. Mr. Madison, punch complex captain, the duel was black greetings. Where was happening? And if you don't think we're winning, just look at the scoreboard. And if you really think you better, just look at the scoreboard. Numbers higher than the drum, we putting points on the scoreboard. Roddy Rocket Master Poe, a big name on the scoreboard. Mr. Madison's war is always why we stack the scoreboard. The best with 5 tracks, who's counting? Check the scoreboard. We getting better at the shit, we'll break that fucking scoreboard. Press get weird. You're right. Mr. Madison's war.
And we are back. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. That was Scoreboard by the Frontier Species. Actually looked up the ethnicities and looking at the picture of the two gentlemen involved in that project, Frontier Species. One of them appears to be African American or Black. One of them appears to be white and or white passing. Actually, I had you muted for that, so no one heard you.
Yes. Oh, no one heard me.
No one heard her thank me.
No one heard, yeah, except for the people on video, I guess. I don't know. Oh, man. Okay, so we're talking some pretty difficult things to
We're having our usual prosperity
you
now
know,
party.
Yeah, exactly. Our usual prosperity now party where we're just going to kind of remind everybody that we got a long way to go.
We're just going to have dope rap songs in between. That's
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
it's
LeBaron
our
Sims
forte,
Jr.,
really.
Senior Research Manager, is here. Say that again?
It's our forte. We're just, we traffic in sun and light.
Word.
Wow.
Well, they're cutting down on trafficking, so I don't know if you're going to be able to continue bringing that in.
Oh, man. man.
That was another one of those ones where, not to get into that, but like a data thing where I saw that FBI sex trafficking.
Oh,
There was a
yeah.
report saying we caught a lot of people, and then when you dug into the data, there was a lot of. It seemed like that headline was a bit overblown.
Yeah.
And that seems to be one of those things where, like, man, people are trying to be so creative
With the numbers.
with data, which is the whole opposite of the point with stats. Like, you're supposed to be able to plot them on a graph.
Yeah, and just these are the facts. And I feel like it's hard to ignore these facts too. I know one of the major things about the report is families are having an easier time getting by but have a harder time getting ahead. Can you break down a little bit what that means?
That's a scary story that implies.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it gets back to that economic recovery that the United States has been experiencing over the last, I
10
guess
years.
the President Obama's last term.
Right.
let's say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so as we kind of look at some of the data, we see median household income finally rising. For
Okay.
the longest time following the recession, it was stagnated. It declined actually to a certain point.
Oh wow.
To like well below its level prior to the recession.
Yeah.
And it's only just now over its initial over the rate or the value that it was at prior to the recession.
Okay. So we finally caught up
And-
to ourselves.
Again, some 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
So we caught up to 2006 us.
Woo!
Congratulations. America.
Yay! The .com boom. Next on Bonfire Radio, we're gonna play "Hit Me, Baby" one more
Oh
time.
jeez.
So, however, we're also starting to see average annual pay start to tick upward.
Okay.
People are finally being compensated a little bit more. But again, with average annual pay, we're looking at a mean, which means that those values are again being skewed by
To higher
the
earners.
higher earning among us. So with that in mind, and knowing what we've seen, from more data, especially Survey Consumer Finances, where we're seeing more income and more wealth accruing to the highest of the income and wealth distribution. It's not difficult to draw a line between that accrual of wealth, accrual of income, and these average annual pay numbers that are ticking upward, but A, not by much, and B, certainly not at the lowest end of the earning distribution.
Oh wow. Okay. So the lower end of earners are not seeing that rise in income.
Absolutely. And where we're also seeing a downward tick in income poverty. So we're really starting to see, especially after the recession, we were seeing a handful of years with really highly elevated income poverty rates.
And to be clear, income poverty, you're talking about like the working poor, like people who have jobs but are still below the poverty line.
Absolutely. So we are looking at just, again, households, generally speaking, that earn below the poverty line, typically with one or two workers.
Wow. Okay.
So as we're seeing, again, even dual earner households that are, again, still kind of living below poverty, we're starting to see those numbers drop a little bit. But again, this isn't necessarily translating to either higher median household income, more people in the middle class, and it's certainly not translating to higher wealth in these communities. So we have a measure in our scorecard that looks at the percentage of households with zero or negative household net worth. So that means
I'm
that
so terrified.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to household net worth, most recently, there was very recently, maybe a couple weeks ago, new wealth data that was released by the Federal Reserve Board, the Survey of Consumer Finances for 2016. And that showed upticks in the percentage of, or increases, I should say, in median household net worth among, and sorry, this is getting a little bit away from the scorecard, but I do love my team.
No, we want to know all the background.
Please, give us the whole thing.
Yeah, and so again, we saw increases in household net worth among every racial and ethnic group. We saw increases among white households, white families, African American, Black families, and among Hispanic Latino households and Asian households as well.
Mm-hmm.
However, in real terms, the racial wealth gap is actually growing. Even though, again, this kind of gets back to some of your more misleading headlines. A lot of news outlets ran with the fact that if you only look at rates of increase, median household net worth rose by a greater rate among African American and Latino families than among white families. But part of the reason, actually the whole reason behind that, is because, again, African American households had less than $10,000 in wealth.
Right.
So if you have $10,000,
so percentage-wise,
exactly,
Yeah.
and you're now at 12,
Right.
that's a $2,000 increase or 20% rise.
right, but
Whereas
still
if
only
you're a white
$2,000.
Exactly. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're a white household and you have $140,000 and you increase by another $14,000, so now you're at 154. But that's only a 10% increase from the previous year. So while the gap is growing in real terms,
Yeah, in like actual
again,
numbers.
some of the more misleading outlets are telling us that we are, that the gap is narrowing, and the fact is it's not.
Well, even just hearing stuff like growth, right? It sounds like, growth is good, but when you look at a Fortune 500 company, the growth needs to be high enough. It needs to be more growth than last time, or else we're failing. So
Yeah, and I think looking at things in absolute numbers and real numbers is the thing that it's the easy way to skew statistics. I feel like when you try and turn things into percentages, just like what you described, it's like, 20% growth. What is $2,000 going to do? That $14,000, like what is $2,000 versus $14,000? Anyone else would look at that and be like, damn, that's a hell of a lot more money that white households grew.
Absolutely. And so I'm not going to say that that's not progress or that's not positive. Obviously, as a African American and Latino male, I would love to have another $2,000 in my pocket or in my bank account.
Right.
However, I would rather have that $14,000.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I feel like it makes people complacent, and it makes people say, "Oh, look, it's working, whatever we're doing." And I think that's the biggest problem, is it makes people feel like, all right, so whatever we're doing now, we can just keep doing.
Or we've done enough.
Yeah, we've done enough. Like the scorecard looks good, right?
Everybody's even. It's over.
Absolutely.
People.
Yeah.
And so as we see especially as we look at net worth, and I know that it's been kind of a hot topic in the media for a while.
Oh yeah, that generational wealth
especially generational wealth, intergenerational wealth transfers. Being able to pass something down to your children, whether it's your home, whether it's a business, whether it's just a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of households, especially as the boomer generation starts to retire. A lot of those households that lost wealth in the recession and were predominantly African-American Latino households that had the biggest store of their wealth in an IRA or 401k that got wiped out by that recession aren't going to be able to pass anything down to their kids.
Right.
Which again, as we kind of look at intergenerational wealth, just puts that additional burden on the youngest generation to take care of their parents and, again, have to deal with the burden of taking care of themselves, paying down that student loan debt, paying down, having to deal with elevating rates in cities all across, elevating rents.
Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Right. That all of that impacts a family, a household, and individual's ability to save for the future and invest on themselves and in their futures. Right.
Totally. Well, and I feel like I want to, because we talk about this a lot, and it is like kind of depressing. But I think that one of the reasons that I think it's important to hear this stuff is you're not crazy and you're not alone if you feel like this shit is hard, right? It's one of those things where I feel like there's a lot of people who are like making the most money they have in their lives or making more money than their parents. So why is their net worth, why is that balance sheet not growing for them?
Well,
and what you described is exactly it.
Well, and it also, it contributes to a lot of everybody's imposter syndrome where they think that hey, you know, I'm supposed to be at this stage of my life and I do all this work and I've got this position, I've got this stuff. Why am I still not able to get ahead? Maybe I'm not working hard enough because
Right.
everyone says that it's hard work, even though, I mean, as your report and lots of things show, there's often an inverse proportion to harder versus how much you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, one of the things that you don't necessarily see talked about when we talk about, again, intergenerational wealth and intergenerational poverty
Mm-hmm.
is just exactly how hard and how many of the people that we're talking about are working. We're talking
Yeah.
about dual earner households. We're talking about people with multiple jobs, trying to support kids, trying to support parents, and just falling short.
Yeah.
A big part of the reason why, again, is these systemic and historic roadblocks that have been put up in place that kind of keep people in their place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and never
Right.
dealt with. Amazingly, just somehow they went, oh, yeah, that problem, that was a problem. I know we still do it, but we don't talk about it now, so act like it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some
Yeah.
of the craziest stats that we've seen are like, going back to the unemployment, like being at almost pre-recession levels, but the actual quality of the jobs has gone down in general. And then one of the scariest stats in here is more than 1 in 3 jobs are low wage in 6 states.
Yeah, and the way that we calculate that low wage job measure is we look at occupations, not occupations, sorry. We
Yeah.
we look at occupations that have a median pay, again, that 50%
The middle. Yep.
smack in the middle. The median pay that is below the income poverty threshold for a household of 4, which is to say that having that job won't keep you out of poverty, right?
Wow.
And that's 50% of the people that hold that job.
Wow.
And especially in the deep South, there's a handful of states that have above 30%, 1 in 3, of
That are in those
their
jobs.
jobs, and the growth in their jobs since the recession has been almost predominantly or exclusively in these low wage occupations or low wage sectors.
Yeah. I mean, they're all Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama are 4 of the 6 states.
Yep, exactly. I
Yeah.
believe New Mexico's in there
Yep.
as well.
New Mexico's in there, and then
Yeah.
West Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
So again, like one of the things with the scorecard that I tell people, and I actually told somebody earlier today in a separate meeting, is that nothing that we're really saying is revolutionary. Like a lot of it isn't new. The data itself is new, but the stories remain the
same.
same.
I mean, yeah, I saw Trading Places.
So what do we do with that then? If none of this is new, if we all kind of feel this anecdotally, now there's sort of proof in these numbers that come out every year. What can we do about knowing this?
Well, I think the big thing is, and one of the things that people like to harp on is personal responsibility. If people just buckle down and save and work and don't spend money on Jordans or
Right. Oh,
iPhones,
God. Yeah.
then then they'll be able to save and move on up the economic ladder like the Jeffersons.
Right. That is the rhetoric.
So,
Yeah.
wait, so this is all Michael Jordan's fault? I knew it.
And apples.
Michael
And
Jordan
Apple.
and Apple.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs, they
Yeah.
ruined it. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean it. Don't destroy it.
No, you don't want him to like come over here and do an old man dunk on you. He'd do it if you heard someone
Oh,
at it.
he would drop 75 points on me in about 15. So, but as we look at as again, people keep kind of talking about that personal responsibility
Yeah.
piece. The more we find in research and hear people tell stories and look at their balance sheets and understand that, again, people continue to work, but compensation isn't growing, right? Household income has remained relatively stagnant over the past decade. Even actually going back to the 1970s, we haven't really seen big increases in compensation the way that we've seen these huge increases in worker productivity.
Yeah, and I've seen that in a lot of different places.
Huge
Like,
profits.
Like
Absolutely.
every angle that you get, people have studied that and shown that that's the case. And I don't even know who we're supposed to be mad at about that.
Right.
Like who was the decision? Was it like all the companies? Was there policy stuff that let that happen? Like what's the whole thing of that? Because I think people are now becoming aware of the fact that our income is not growing at the same rate as even inflation.
Yeah.
And we're just confused by it because I thought if I worked hard I was gonna get the money.
When you see, like you mentioned, the earnings of companies are keeping up with that. Like companies are earning more money than ever, and you're seeing that with the stock market just like flying this year, and the earnings are keeping up with that.
Yeah.
For the companies.
Well, are they playing people? Like I said the trading places joke because as you were talking, I had this idea in my head about if you took because people are saying, oh, kids at fast food places don't deserve wage increases because that's what you do as a kid. It's easy work. And I was just picturing in my head if we had a CEO or a high-level executive of any company and took them with no training and took a kid at like a teenager who worked at a fast food place and made them trade jobs for a day, I would put my money on the kid to be more successful at the corporate job than the CEO or a high-level executive being able to make it a day through the fryer-later.
Oh, can you do that study?
I think CBS has the rights for Undercover Boss, so it might be.
Oh wait, is that a show?
Is that just Undercover Boss? Did I just describe Undercover Boss?
I think so.
Oh my God, you have to watch
but
that
I don't really
show.
know because I haven't really watched that show since college. Old friend of mine, shout out Tim Cumsey, used to love that show.
I just thought it was the boss comes to your job and pretends like he's not your boss and then says stuff. And he was just trying to spy on you. But if they really have to,
trade
to
jobs,
see if they could. And my thing is without training, without any training, you don't tell either one of them what to do. I'm telling you. And that CEO is burning the heck out of himself. Permanent injuries.
Yeah. Oh man, burning the heck. It's true. It's so true. Oh my God. So okay. I feel.
I will say, like a lot of that is. There's a lot of negativity.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of frustration and especially only speaking personally, like real feelings of impotence, for lack of a better term.
Yes, that is what I was just. I'm like, I feel like I can't do anything.
And paralysis. It's not knowing. It's not knowing what to do. It's not knowing what you can do. It's not knowing what to do or what you can do. What's even possible. And it can get really, really, really depressing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, especially in this moment, and especially with kind of this renewed interest in local solutions and power of people to influence institutions, I think that there's real possibility in local advocacy, local politics. And that's part of the reason that we introduced local data into the scorecard to get a better sense of what communities look like. Right. It's looking at regions, intra-regional dynamics.
What communities have been successful that you found in the scorecard? Was that a none of them?
Well, I'm not gonna say that, but a lot of the dynamics that you see at the national level are played out,
on the local level.
At the local level, right? Because again, this country is really just a collection of communities.
Yeah, true.
And so, where you're really seeing this growth in strength in higher earning cities, higher earning communities, again, it's reflected at the national level. Where again, higher earners are still they're the winners in the economy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the institutions of the country help to reinforce that. Again, one of the biggest talking points and initiatives that we have here at Prosperity Now is our Turn It Right Side Up campaign, where we look at the tax code and the ways that the tax code is built. Can't really go into details because it will put everybody to sleep. But all the myriad of ways that the American tax code is structured to keep money funneling upward, right?
Yeah.
So irrespective of background, the percentage of income that you're actually putting into the tax system or the structure, all of the benefits of the tax system are accruing to the richest of the rich.
Right. Well, and we've talked about that on the show before, this idea of like even something like the mortgage interest deduction, right? And something where you're like, oh, if you own a home, then you can take advantage of this really big deduction, except you have to own a home and it can't be a mobile home.
Yep, absolutely.
So for people in the lowest income tax brackets who what they can afford is a mobile home or a tiny home, they don't even have access to something like that.
They don't have access to something like that. Oftentimes they don't own the land that their homes are on.
In case...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I just wanted to throw in case folks were wondering what was just going on in that conversation. These guys are talking about how you can't get yourself a tax break unless you can afford to buy in to get a tax break. It's welfare that you pay for.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's welfare for the rich.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And again, the mortgage interest deduction in particular is the lowest earning subsidizing the tax breaks of the highest earning. And again, this also breaks down along racial lines. If you need to own a home to get this huge redistribution of wealth, to get access to this huge redistribution of wealth, but 70% of white households are homeowners versus 40% of black households versus 49% of Latino households, then again, you're just seeing more and more of that redistribution of wealth that nobody really likes to talk about, especially when it is being redistributed from the bottom up.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It's
not to get all Marxist on everybody as we talk about the.
But that is exactly what's happening.
Marxist too. No, we're talking about our 90s R&B group Brownstone's great album From the Bottom Up. Right? That's what we're talking about.
Just take us to a song.
Yeah, that was just for anybody who happens to be listening in. I was trying to keep us out of trouble.
You got some Brownstone for us? Was that the segue?
You know what's funny enough? Actually, I think it's the same artist I was going to play had a song that it was like featuring Brownstone, but it was like cheating too much, where they like the whole first half of the song was Brownstone, then he started rapping in the middle. I was like, that's kind of cheating. But this is an interesting track, and I really liked it because it starts off with some dissonant notes that might turn you off, and I gave it a couple of seconds after that, and then it grew on me. This is another Scoreboard track. It's another reason I was thinking of cutting it, but it's interesting. It comes from Salt Lake City. It's from an artist called Self High Five, and we will check you in a minute. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio.
Is this world cool? As it is, this masquerade can't change what is. Let a little glance of the world in. Is your love life worth watching? Faith in the way of sin. Bust Pandora's box again, knowing full well what's inside of it. Miss Lightning Rod, what's your car? Steal from the gods, leg shots of fun. Get involved, shoot death rays. Line 'em up. Firing squad, it's a drinking game. On our 10 cup, sometimes you gotta slum to get messed up. How's your life?
It's alright.
What's with her?
She's alright.
Go say hi.
I might. I don't know if I'm riding that bike.
What time you got?
3-4.
What's the next spot?
Dance floor.
It's getting hot, boy.
She poured me another shot.
Scoreboard.
Pure comic candy, sweet tooth, rose-colored glasses, see-through. Meta is the new black. Speak truth. She was like, hey, nice to meet you. I don't wanna be a speed bump in your star. Yes, you tear a trash dump, not just another skirt. Kill buzz, no Ivy League, not exactly. Snake oil sales with no degree. Apathetic way more than I be. No disrespect, just what I see. I've lost love, voice eloquent. I've been searching for it ever since. How's your life?
It's alright.
What's with her?
She's alright.
Go say hi.
I might. I don't know if I'm flying that kite.
What time you got?
3-4.
What's the next spot?
Dance floor.
It's getting hot, boy.
She poured me another shot.
Scoreboard.
No. those brown eyes cry often. Cheer up my little indie darling. Speak cute adjective till exhaustion, paint word pixels, then get lost in. Let's mastermind in ill caper, no understudy, psych major. My sidekick, Kid Crusader. She won't live, but then who does? Let's all see what she becomes. Madness, mayhem, not above. Madness said I'm good at what it does. Take a breath, feel rebellious. Take my hand, let's get reckless. How's your life?
It's alright,
What's with her?
she's alright.
Go say hi.
I might, I don't know if I'm feeling that hype.
What time you got?
3, 4,
What time you got?
3, 4,
What time you got?
3, 4.
It's getting hot, boy.
Scoreboard,
It's getting hot, boy.
scoreboard.
It's getting hot.
And we are back. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. That was another scoreboard song by Self High Five, Mark Dago. Actually, Self High Five was the name of the record, not the name of the artist, but I thought Self High Five would be a cool name for an artist, too. Anyway, I'm just babbling on while we're here talking about, we have another good Prosperity Now talk about the score, the report. Wow, how are we doing as an America?
I know, right?
We're not doing great, especially as we really dig into the numbers.
Yes, as we really dig. And thank you again so much for joining us, LeBaron Sims Jr., Senior Research Manager at Prosperity Now. There's a new measurement that you have, the income volatility measurement. And I'm curious how that's been important in fleshing out your findings.
Absolutely. So the income volatility measure, it's actually been a fairly, to say hot topic again, I guess I'm like stuck at a mall in middle America in 1999.
Yes.
Spencer's Gifts.
I don't want to admit how much time and money I spent as a preteen, but
You
it's
and
neither
all
here
of
nor
us.
there. But income volatility, it really gets at that low-wage jobs piece that we were talking about earlier, right? What income volatility is fluctuations in income that people have month to month,
Okay.
or honestly week to week, paycheck to paycheck.
Oh, so it's not even steady income that people are making nowadays.
Absolutely. It's not like, again, that growth in employment that we've seen since the recession has really been in these low wage occupations. And oftentimes we're looking at, hourly work. We're looking at, it's certainly not salaried income, where
Right.
you have guarantee of how much money you're going to have in your bank account at the end of the month.
And how does the gig economy kind
Yeah,
of...
that's just what I wanted to know. Yeah.
Yeah, so with especially with the gig economy, we're really seeing that as a substitute for some of these. In a lot of cases, we're seeing it as kind of a substitute for a lot of more like official or traditional work. Where people are hired, people have to fill out a W-4. They pay taxes through through their employer. They get benefits from their employer. We're seeing a lot of that. A lot of the new work, new work isn't paying benefits. People are being held back.
Right, they're
independent
contractors, right?
Exactly. They're not employees of Uber, employees of Postmates. But again, it works for a lot of people, so it's not to discount the work. It's an income, and it's a fairly reliable source of income. But again, when you're depending on cab fare or individual fares to earn your keep, or individual deliveries, there's going to be fluctuations in that. And people have high periods, they have more fallow periods, and all of that plays into this income volatility stat. So as we kind of look at income volatility in the United States, or among workers, we're seeing that really a surprising amount of American workers don't have steady income flowing from month to month. They do have income. Again, these are all people who are working, who are have at the bare minimum one job, oftentimes multiple jobs. And again, as we're talking about the gig economy, oftentimes that's being used to supplement more traditional work. It's people who are working at it's waiters, it's bartenders who just need some extra money to cover their rent for the month. Because again, we're seeing rents rising, especially in major cities. It's younger workers, and when I say younger, I don't mean teenagers. I'm talking about people my age. Honestly, I've had a fair amount of Ubers driven by people in their 40s and 50s.
Oh yeah.
Who are out there just trying to earn a little bit more money because again, they've been working at a place for decades. They may have gotten laid off. They may just not have had a salary increase in a while.
Well, and that sounds like what you were talking about earlier about the when we're getting by but we're not getting ahead, and it's concerning, just like how people are using crowdfunding. Like, yeah, crowdfunding does work for some people, and some people who've gone to like cancer or had their leg broken, other stuff like the medical crowdfunding, that has worked for people and that has helped people. So it has been a good thing for them, but the growing need for that is the really concerning thing.
Right, and I feel like that is, I feel like the scorecard does a good job revealing, like, this isn't about personal responsibility. This is about, like, what policies actually do need to change for everybody to really be able to, like, take advantage or, like, have that American dream ideal come true.
Yeah. What policies do need to be changing?
So as we were talking about just now, waiters, right, or service employees, especially in the food industry, a lot of them aren't covered by minimum wage policies, right?
Yeah, you make $2.16 in New York.
Exactly. Let's say, which anybody in the food service industry knows and loathes about our minimum wage economy. So even as we're talking about the fight for 15, in a lot of cases, we're still excluding a lot of people in the food service.
You just blew my mind, because that's the original crowdfunding. Is we pay these guys nothing to bring you food, and you're a jerk if you don't give them extra money, crowd of people who we're going to see during the day.
Dang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Tipping is the original crowdfunding.
Dang. That's good, Dad.
But one thing that we can do is to help get tipped workers, service workers, domestic workers included under federal minimum wage protections or state level minimum wage protection. A lot of the policies that we look at in the Prosperity Now scorecard they're all at the state level. But there is direct influence that you can have, not just at the national level, not just the state level, but at the local level. We're seeing a lot of really innovative and really progressive policies being introduced in cities all across the country. Seattle has introduced a higher minimum wage. Chicago enacted a higher minimum wage. So as we're seeing a lot of cities across the country take the lead, one thing that people can do is get involved. Call a local legislator, call your city council, call your state representative, call your federal representative, and make sure that they know that your vote is contingent on their vote covering everybody.
Yeah.
Again, the reason that we elect officials at all levels of government is to represent us. So if they're not representing us, then they don't need to represent us, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. When I feel like one of the exciting things that you did say by actually breaking this down by community is that you getting involved at the local level does make a difference on the national level, because when you change the local politics, then it reflects on a national level.
It absolutely does, and it provides an example for other cities to follow.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just everything has to start somewhere.
Right.
And if you can enact change in your community, then you can enact change in your city. If you can enact change in your city, then you can enact change in your county. If you can enact change in your county, it cascades up. Change in your state, change in the country. Ultimately, change in the world.
Oh my God, what a beautiful way to we just ran out of time.
We're ending out on that. I have nothing to top that. That was fantastic. Any other? Oh yeah. Well, tell us any other stuff that we need to know to find this research, where we can get the report.
Put the report in the show notes.
Yeah, it's going to be in the show notes. All that.
Absolutely. So again, this is our Prosperity Now scorecard for 2017. You can find it at prosperitynow.org. The scorecard specifically is at scorecard.prosperitynow.org. And keep your eyes peeled. We're starting production on a new version. It'll be out in January. We're going to add new features, more data disaggregated by race, by gender, by disability. We're going to be looking at and doing some special reports in the future as well. We're going to be looking at immigrant populations. Again, we're going to be doing some more updates to some of our research around the road to zero wealth, working with our federal policy team on that. So keep your eyes peeled at prosperitynow.org. We're going to have some more, hopefully uplifting, but probably not, goodies for everybody out there.
Well, I guess literally uplifting, like not spiritually uplifting, but things that should give us the stuff so that we can actually do some lifting up. We got to thank Prosperity Now, LeBaron Sims Jr., not only for providing wonderful information, but excellent vocab usage. Your lexicon is fantastic. I was noticing before when you were talking about how groups were unscrupulous, I feel like people talk about workers being unprofessional when it's really that their employers are unscrupulous, and that's the language that we should be using. So I really noticed and appreciated all the text that you were saying. And we're going to finish off by leaving the country entirely. I've got some artists from Paris, France, Un de Choc. I don't know what it means. I don't know Francish. And they're going to play a song called Hard Score, because this has been a really hard score. And we will check you guys next week, maybe with something fluffier, but probably not. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. I really mean it when I say peace.
Ah oui, alors celle-là. C'est hard score. Goutte de sueur, goutte de sueur, goutte de sueur. C'est hard score. Goutte de sueur, goutte de sueur, goutte de sueur. C'est hard. Cette barre, elle a des thèmes coquins. Elle est faite de parties pas très simples. Moi, je suis en retard, j'ai failli rater le 1, mais faut bien qu'elle se fasse suivre par quelqu'un. C'est pas juste pas facile, c'est pire. C'est pas une fade partie de plaisir. Sans pratique, c'est cuit. Si on te sortait là, ce serait pas easy. Une grille si balèze, tu la tenterais pas avec une main dans le dos. Vu que c'est plus difficile qu'il n'y paraît, c'est un putain de délire. À croire que ça va pas le faire, c'est pas du pain béni, c'est la croix et la bannière. Goutte de sueur, goutte de sueur. Merde. Ah. C'est hard score. Y'a moyen que ça te tarde des gueules. Je t'ai dit c'est pas simple, c'est hard level. Y'a pas de ça se balade, ça c'est coton, c'est pas banal, ça n'a pas sa place chez l'autre con. Cette partoche c'est trash gore, c'est cash. Tu peux pas jouer à, c'est hard score. C'est pas dans la poche, c'est moche, tout le monde peut pas faire face. Personne n'a dit que c'était fastoche. Hard score. Goutte de sueur sur la tempe, frisson. Hard score. Coup de gueule sur la transcription. Hard score. On n'est pas des sales mioches, on mène des vies hard score. La partoche donne du fil à retordre. Goutte de sueur, goutte de sueur. Ah, merde. C'est hard score. Des breaks bien jazz, pas piquer des hannetons. Les mecs d'un chat vont mériter les cachetons. Ça se fait pas sans patience, ça se fait pas sans peine. Ça se fait pas non plus les doigts dans le zen. C'est des bons pour jouer un petit truc avec eux. Il faut un CV long, comme la bite d'une baleine bleue. Nous c'est 5 stars, pas le casse-dalle. C'est pas de la tarte, y'aura pas la table dans guitare par hard score. Hard score comme reconnaître ses torts. Hard score. On n'est pas des sales mioches, on mène des vies hard score.